Hello all, Old Geek here, and I'm going to have a little read through an article. I don't read through many articles, but I'm allowed to from time to time. Some of you might know I like a bit of I like I like driving games as well as role playing games. I did a bit of motorsport as a hobby a little while back, and I was watching something on YouTube earlier where this guy was discussing the Metacritic rankings for driving games. So I thought I'll have a look, see what the role-playing games Metacritic rankings are, and I couldn't filter them enough because you can only filter them as far as RPGs, and of course that will include sci-fi games and all sorts. And I've got no interest in sci-fi. There's so many games on that list that I hadn't touched. So I went to Google. Google's my friend, and I googled top 20 Dungeons and Dragons video game rankings, something like that. And this was the first hit I got. So let's read it. I already like the name of the website, Game Rant. It gives you a good idea of what you're about to get. Yes, yeah, okay. So let's see what they think the 20 best Dungeons and Dragons video games are. It's by Christy Ambrose, and it was last updated March this year, so it's current. So let's have a little look. Nice big bit of art. And here we have Dungeons and Dragons franchise includes novels, board games, movies, and video games, role-playing, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. As it does. This is a little update here by the author. Just explaining how things have developed. Talking about the new movie on the horizon. So obviously that's now been released. And the recent controversy about the D&D open game license. So it's talking about D&D's impact on modern day culture, basically. How far it extends, which it does. It does. So at number 20, Lords of Waterdeep. Now, I've played the board game, played it once, thoroughly enjoyed it, really, really good, but it wasn't D&D. It was just based on D&D, but I did enjoy the board game. It looks like it's a mobile game. I don't know anything about it, but the board game was good, and I would be willing to pick up a sensibly priced version on PC or mobile or whatever. My mobile probably wouldn't run it, it's tiny, I wouldn't be able to see that with my old eyes, but worth a look. Okay, fair enough. 20th out of 20. Don't know what's missed out on the list, so don't know what it's above and what's above it. But number 19, Eye of the Beholder. Excellent. Good to see this venerable classic getting recognition. The original game dates to 1991. I thought it was earlier. Okay, maybe 1991. I know I played it around that time on my old PC, an old 386 SX25. Ran it absolutely fine. And I had great fun with Eye of the Beholder. It was quite simple. You had a party of characters, and you went tromping through a dungeon, killing things and solving puzzles. No real complexity to it, but it was classic D&D. It was unfortunately set in the Forgotten Realms, but that 1991, so that had taken over by then. I did try Eye of the Beholder 2 and Eye of the Beholder 3, both of which came a little later, and for its simplicity, Eye of the Beholder, the original Eye of the Beholder, was better. Eye of the Beholder 2 was too many gotchas, and Eye of the Beholder 3 just wasn't interested in the sort of screen flicking games by then. I heard it just took what was bad about Eye of the Beholder 2 and ramped it up. Eye of the Beholder 1 felt much more like a game of D&D than 2 did. So let's see what they say about it. It was an instant hit among gamers, including those who are unfamiliar with D&D and those who've never played the tabletop version. And its popularity spawned a number of sequels. It might be humble, but it's one of the best D&D video games. 19th on the list. Fair enough. Okay, I think that's probably fair. 18. Baldur's Gate 3. Right. I've not played it. My fallout with 5th edition started rumbling a few years back. And recent events. Huh. Dog scratching in the background. Have you finished, Mist? Yeah, you're scratching on the internet. They'll be able to hear you. Yes. Yes. Right. Continue. And I just haven't had any inclination to even look at Baldur's Gate 3. It doesn't appeal to me. Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire. I played Pillars of Eternity 1, and it was recommended to me. One of my group bought it for me as a nice birthday present. And I won't say thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it up until a certain point. It was a well-crafted, lush game, great story, lots of interesting interactions, some really good ideas. But I like to play these games without much theory crafting. I'm not a theory crafter. I'm not a system mastery person in terms of power gaming. I master a system in order to play it smoothly. There is a difference. And I played through the original Pillars of Eternity, and quite enjoyed it. I found combat quite bland. That might be because the combat mechanics were very similar to 4th edition D&D, with recharging powers. It didn't feel enough like true D&D for me. And I had no desire to try to master the system. But I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the game. And then it came to a point where I had this big combat where my lack of character building, hate that term, mastery, and my lack of combat mastery, system mastery, meant I couldn't do it. But up until then, I'd gone through fine. Yes, I'd had the odd hiccup. But for a game to suddenly have this brick wall, this logjam, where if you haven't mastered the system, you can't get any further, felt wrong to me. And I had no urge to go back to it. No urge to learn it, to remake my characters, and go through it all over again. Or even just rework them using a real combat focus. Because my focus wasn't on combat. I prefer a more organic sort of character growth. Which is a shame. Because I'd enjoyed the game up until that point. And thus, I never went on to play Pillars of Eternity 2. So it does say here, those looking for a modern Dungeons & Dragons game should play this one. I'm not, so... Planescape Torment. This was poorly timed for me when I was gaming, because I stopped playing tabletop role-playing games in about 92. Got a job, family, but my job was at a computer games company. I got that job in 1996. And I got to look at Baldur's Gate, the original, and Baldur's Gate 2. They came into the office. We didn't publish them, but we traded with other companies for copies of them, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. Then Torment came along. Now, because I'd stopped buying D&D stuff in 92, I'd missed the arrival of Planescape. I will say here, the reviewer has called it Planetscape in one point. In fact, 3 times this reviewer has referred to it as Planetscape. That is a pedantic downvote from me. Anyway, I missed out on Planescape, so I never had the urge to really delve into Torment, which is a shame because I heard a lot of good things about it. But I enjoyed Baldur's Gate 1, especially for its free roaming, party-based approach, whereas Torment wasn't party-based. I really need to give it a better look, though, because I've heard so many good things about it, and I'm probably being unfair to it. I've heard it's got a very, very good storyline to it. So, 16th, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons, weirdest creatures in the Monster Manual. Another list. Might look at that at some point. All right, 15, Neverwinter Nights. I bought Neverwinter Nights. I played through the basic campaign that comes with it, which is fairly bland and unspectacular. But unlike Pillars of Eternity, it didn't need you to really optimize your character, even though, because Neverwinter Nights is third edition. Even though third edition is based around optimization, you didn't need to get through Neverwinter Nights. And I liked its graphical representation. I thought it was quite slick. It moved well. And what really kept it going for me is the modding community converted a load of old AD&D first edition and basic D&D modules to be played. Now, the lack of a proper party structure did hamper them a little bit, but still, it was great to revisit that nostalgia. And those modules were much better than the campaign that came with the game itself. And the game itself, yeah, it put me off playing third edition, even trying it, because from what I could grasp from the mechanics is they ran quite smoothly in a video game, but there's so many little modifiers going on that I couldn't imagine playing at the table, and I didn't like the whole mechanical feel of character building. So I was grateful that Neverwinter Nights didn't require you to really theory craft your character in order to win. You could do it without that. But Neverwinter Nights, I think it's fair at about 15th. I do hope the other Baldur's Gate games come in higher, because mechanically it didn't feel like a D&D game to me. Obviously, if you played third edition, it will have done. Anyway, let's move on. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Okay, this is one of the arcade game ones. Hack and slash game. Yeah, PlayStation and Xbox. I didn't play it. Is it... It's a D&D listing. Is it better than Neverwinter Nights or Planescape Torment? Which, even with their various mistakes that I've mentioned, are still D&D of their era. Video game, no thank you. No, I'm too arcadey. Too arcadey for me. I did see it being played, never had any interest in playing it. Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard, a game that was quietly released in 2005 by Atari without... Well, I know, I've never heard of it. Never heard of it. Is it any good? Let's have a look. The story takes place in Eberron. Okay, move on. Temple of Elemental Evil. I did buy this, and it didn't run well on my PC at the time. I shelved it, and I've still got it somewhere up in my attic. So I never played it much. Played it a little bit, and I was disappointed to find that it had been converted to third or 3.5 or whatever, whichever it was, because it's a conversion of that first edition campaign. Village of Hommlet, one of the best modules, one of the best campaign starting modules there is. Jury's out still after 40 years on Temple of Elemental Evil, the full version. I think it's a cumbersome behemoth, but it's certainly got some great ideas in it. I wish they'd recreated it using AD&D rules. Then I would have been drawn in. Then I would have forgiven the game its bugs. Then I would have forgiven the game the fact that it ran very clunkily on the PC I had at the time. And then I would have had the urge to dig it out again and play it again. I know a lot of people like it. I know the bugs have been fixed. It's just that it uses mechanics from an era of the game that I don't like. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, the game dates from 2003, and although it drew criticism for bugs and choppy gameplay generally, it received accolades for the turn-based combat and battlefield tactics. Okay. Don't mind turn-based combat, and the emphasis for me on battlefield tactics, and that's what I got from playing third edition games. That overemphasis on battlefield tactics. Yes, you should play older versions of D&D with a degree of tactics, but there was a degree of creativity. Let me just explain to you. I mean, I'm running an OSE game at the moment. We've played 3 sessions of it so far. Do you know what percentage of that time has been spent talking about game mechanics and how the mechanics work and working out pluses and minuses in combat and that sort of thing? Less than 1%. Because the game is so smooth, so malleable. Just make a decision on the spot, off you go, and it's been great. And the problem I've had when I have tried to play both 3rd edition and 4th edition at the table, more time is spent on the mechanics, which leaves less time for the imagination, for the role-playing, for those little amusing asides and creative solutions. Okay, Icewind Dale 2. I don't remember whether I played Icewind Dale 2. I played Icewind Dale. I can't remember whether I played 2 or not. Now, Icewind Dale, I enjoyed. AD&D mechanics. It was a bit shorter than the Baldur's Gate games, but it was good fun. And it was familiar, nostalgic mechanics for me. I did enjoy it. I don't know which version of D&D Icewind Dale 2 uses. What year did it come out? It doesn't say here. I can't remember. I can't remember playing Icewind Dale 2, so I probably haven't. I've completed Icewind Dale 1. Strong suit of Icewind Dale 2 is its gameplay mechanics, including its combat system. Interesting. However, the game has dated graphics and might not measure up to... Seriously, so what? A likely candidate for a remaster that hasn't happened yet. Right. Is that hinting that Baldur's Gates are towards the top here? Because they've been remastered? They've been reworked? Let's hope so. Let's hope so. There's less exploration in Icewind Dale 2 compared to other games of its kind. I can't class that as a negative. Dungeons and Dragons Daggerdale. A standard D&D adventure that takes place in the Forgotten Realms is inspired by the Heroes series, which isn't exactly amazing. You're talking about Heroes of Might and Magic? I don't know of any other Heroes series. They were great. Bear in mind, this is a 10-year-old game based on 2nd edition rules and doesn't have the same variety as more recent games, the same genre. If it's based on 2nd edition rules, I might have a look at it. Okay. Not play. Solasta, Crown of the Magister. Don't know it. A game based on a variant of the 5th edition D&D rules. Location of this story in the context of the D&D lore is never specified. That's a bonus. So it's not strictly a game of D&D rules, but all the players told is initially that the game's setting is a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. It's not the most complex story, but the combat and graphics are accessible to anyone, even gamers unfamiliar with D&D. If it's not strictly a game of D&D rules, and it's not strictly in the Forgotten Realms, I'm not sure why it's in this list, but that's a benefit for me because I'm not a Realms fan, and 5th edition rules have their flaws. Again, might tick that worth a bit of a delve. D&D Online, in 8th place. Right. Massively multiplayer online games. I played multi-user dungeons in the early and mid-90s. Occasionally came back to them afterwards. I had a subscription to Lord of the Rings Online for a while. Never played World of Warcraft, never played D&D Online. So I can't judge it directly. All I can judge is what I'm based on what I read. And the Lord of the Rings Online I played it for the flavour. I didn't really like the mechanics. I don't like the mechanics of those sort of games, but the flavour was excellent. Though the gameplay was a bit monotonous and frustrating. But everything I ever read was that D&D Online was more so. More tramping around. Slower. So I wouldn't rate Lord of the Rings Online. I don't know, I'd put it in the middle of this list, so I do wonder why D&D Online's so high. Okay. It does say that the community of the game is a group of friendly people who are unwilling to help, instead of being snide or elitist. You'd think the Lotro ones would be a bit snide and elitist. They weren't. I didn't have any problems with anybody I met in there. Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation. What? I don't know it. Instead of creating a character from the ground up, players choose from 1 and 4 pre-generated ones and use them in turn-based combat on an isometric dungeon crawler that uses D&D rules. Okay. Doesn't sound very involving. Doesn't sound very interesting to me. In fact, it sounds quite like a little bit monotonous, moving around a board. No, thank you. No, thank you. Number 6, Neverwinter Nights 2. Where was Neverwinter Nights 1? '15th. Neverwinter Nights 2. Right. Neverwinter Nights 1, you had a party of 1, then you could add 1 ally, so you had 2 in the party. Neverwinter Nights 2 allowed you to have a proper party of characters. Yes, good. Nice step forward. One of the downsides of Neverwinter Nights 1 was the plot, the basic quests was quite meh. Neverwinter Nights 2 was so dull. It was unbelievable. Linear. Dull. Desperate. Terrible basic game quest. I got bored of it in about 5 or 6 hours. And what also was a problem for me was the camera system. They screwed around with it, and it just made it really cumbersome to play, really clunky, and almost vomit-inducing. So if they've improved the graphics and they might well have improved the graphics, I think they did, and added in multiple characters, great. But I found the game boring and unplayable. So why is it at 6 when the first one in the series, which was alright, especially with all the modded stuff, at 15? Wrong way round. 3.5 edition rules. So can pour over 60 hours. I put more than 60 hours into the first one and all the Baldur's Gate ones. With favourable reviews, yeah, okay. Game made mostly positive changes. Disagree since the first game. Some positive, mostly negative. The story is hair-raising and is a must-play for RPG enthusiasts and D&D gamers. No, I didn't find it remotely hair-raising. Found it dull. Dungeons and Dragons Shadow over Mystara. Yeah, side-scrolling beat-em-up, yeah. What the hell is this doing? Look, no matter how good it is as a side-scrolling beat-em-up, it's not an RPG. It's an arcade game with the D&D license stuck to it. Paying lip service to it. What the hell is this doing on this list? Let alone in 5th place. Put it in the beat-em-ups list. Baldur's Gate 4. Shadows of Am. Baldur's Gate 4. Baldur's Gate 2. in fourth place. Widely considered the best Dungeons and Dragons video game out there. And why is it not at number one? Players start the game kidnapped. Yeah, I mean, you are kidnapped at the beginning. Yes, you're kidnapped at the beginning. You don't start with very much. Nothing wrong with that. The dungeons that players explore are varied and gloomy. They are. Oh, yes, they are. Main story lasts approximately 71 hours. Why not say 71 hours and 16 minutes? How can you be that precise? Approximately 71 hours. I played it a lot more than 71 hours. I will admit that now. Yeah, there's a linear storyline to follow along with a healthy amount of independent exploration. There is. The storyline's pretty good. Much better than in Neverwinter Nights. And you can explore around the edges. But there's no real open world feel to it. And this is why I thought Baldur's Gate 1 was better than Baldur's Gate 2. Because even though it was cruder to look at and more simplistic, Baldur's Gate 1 had this freedom to it. Again, there was a storyline, but you could just roam around the world, and it was a decent sized world. But fourth place? Yeah, okay. Oh, Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition. Third place. As I've already said, I've played Icewind Dale, I've completed it. I wasn't aware there was an Enhanced Edition. I may have to get it, because I like Icewind Dale. I think it's good. It includes the original and its expansions. Heart of Winter. I've played that one. That might be the one I thought I might have played Icewind Dale 2. I've played Icewind Dale Heart of Winter. I haven't played Trials of the Lure Master. You can play with others as well. Multiplayer. Oh, right. Okay. I'm having some ideas here. I bet you know. Do apologise. Icewind Dale 3. I like it. Good game. Very good game. Second place. Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. One of the earliest D&D games to ever hit the market has been... Sorry. It came out 10 years, 11 years, maybe 12 years after the SSI, Red Gold Box games. One of the earliest? No, you're completely ignoring those SSI games. Completely ignoring them. There were plenty of D&D games before. Whole series. All the Dragonlance ones. There were Dark Sun ones. Forgotten Realms ones. It was a Birthright one even, I believe. Lots of them. There were loads and loads and loads. So they've been completely ignored. Downvote for the article writer here. Okay, one of the earliest D&D games to ever hit the market has been remastered and returned to the video game world. The first one would become one of the most notorious franchises in the world of gaming. Notorious? Is that the right word? Notoriety? Yes, I would say it did start a whole new age for computer-based RPGs. It was, original Baldur's Gate was fantastic. And I've played the Enhanced Edition. It's wonderful. The upgrades are just what it needs, just to make it palatable to the more to the younger gamers. I'm fine with the older graphics, but I can understand that people who haven't seen all those DOS-based VGA games and whatever from 1990, 91, 92, even back that far, I don't realise what we dealt with back then. So, I mean, for me, the original 1998 edition looked quite good, but obviously times change, don't they? Character customization is central to the game, with the character building the character from level 1. Yeah, you do start at level 1. Building is the wrong word. You don't make all that many choices as you go along in terms of, because your character just develops as it does in AD&D. The right way. And as with Neverwinter Nights, I've completed this multiple times, and I've done it with very suboptimal parties. Yes, I can optimize AD&D. I don't choose to. I like to play through with party themes, so an all good party, or an all evil party, or a more combat orientated party, or a more magical party, or what have you. Just have these themes in my parties, rather than pick the best warrior, the best wizard, and so on. So I love the fact he's got that flexibility. So many NPCs to pick from. More NPCs in this, I believe, than in the follow-up Baldur's Gate 2. And it gave you more freedom. That variety of NPCs allowed... There were multiple ways of putting together a good party. Multiple ways of putting together an evil party. Because you had so many NPCs to choose from. And some of them were great. Some of them were highly entertaining. These little quips they came out with as you were playing. They were great. Really, really good. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. That's my number one. I could have predicted Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition being this reviewer's number one. I don't even mind it being there. The only reason I wouldn't have it at number one is it didn't offer as much freedom of exploration as the first Baldur's Gate did. Baldur's Gate 2 is a lovely game. It's just that little bit more linear. It's just a little bit more railroad. No, it's not a total railroad because you've got a lot of side quests along the way, but it does guide you a little bit more than Baldur's Gate 1 did. And you haven't got quite as many NPCs that can join your party. But you've still got a lot of flexibility in how you approach things. Nowhere near as much flexibility as in Baldur's Gate 1, but you have got plenty of flexibility, which is what you want in a role-playing game. So, you know what? Even though this Christy, I think her name is, I'm assuming it's a she, because Christy is a girl's name where I am. Even though they've missed out, SSI Games put Neverwinter Nights 2 way too high. I'd probably say Eye of the Beholder too low. Torment is probably too low. I need to play that more. I don't dislike this list entirely. I don't agree with a couple of the more video gamey recent ones that have been put in the top 10. They should be shifted out. But then I'm biased. My list would all be Baldur's Gate 1, 2, Enhanced Edition, non-Enhanced Edition, and then I'd put in Icewind Dale, and then I'd probably have Neverwinter Nights. That would be my run in order. But I can't disagree with them having Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the Enhanced Editions, in first and second places. So, credit where credit's due. Hope you've enjoyed this random blathering from me, the old geek. I'll be back soon with more nonsense. Like, subscribe, comment, help the algorithm, join the Discord, play some games. See you soon.